There's a street in Kyoto that looks the same every single morning. An elderly man walks past carrying a small cloth bag. No headphones, no rush. Only walking through his morning like he has 1,000 times before. A woman stops at a vegetable stand on her way somewhere. She picks up a few things. She moves on. A cyclist glides by without even trying. And here's the thing that keeps nagging at me every time I think about this scene. Nobody here looks like they're trying to be healthy. Nobody's carrying a protein shake or wearing a fitness tracker. There's no gym bag, no kale smoothie, nothing that looks remotely like what we're usually told weight management is supposed to look like. And Japan has one of the lowest obesity rates of any developed country in the world. So what is actually happening on that street? Most of us have heard the same advice for years when it comes to losing weight. Eat less, move more, have more discipline. And if the number on the scale isn't going down, it's easy to feel like you're doing something wrong. Maybe you just need to try harder. Maybe you need more willpower. At least, that's the story many of us have been told. But what if staying healthy isn't only about pushing yourself harder? What if some of the most powerful habits are the ones that feel almost effortless? Maybe you've noticed this too. You start a diet on Monday with total conviction. By Thursday, something cracks. By the following week, you're back where you started. Except now you feel worse because you failed again. Think about your own life for a second. Think about your last meal for a moment. Were you really focused on eating? Or were you scrolling through your phone, checking messages, or watching something in the background? For many of us, meals have become just another task squeezed into a busy day. Here's what's interesting though. What if the real problem isn't the food itself? What if we've been focusing on the wrong thing entirely? We've been taught to think about weight in terms of math. Eat a little less, burn a little more. Simple, right? But real life rarely works that neatly. Because your body doesn't experience life as a calorie calculator. It experiences patterns, routines, moments repeated day after day. And sometimes, those daily rhythms shape your health more than any diet ever could. What if the habits that quietly shape our waistlines have almost nothing to do with the dramatic things we think about? Today, we're going to look at 5 ordinary habits from Japanese daily life. Not diet plans, not exercise routines, just small, almost invisible behaviors that seem to create a completely different relationship with food, movement, and the body. And before we get into the list, there's something important you need to understand. Japan isn't healthy for one big reason. It's healthy because of dozens of tiny things happening every single day. That's the framework. Small, consistent behaviors woven so deeply into everyday life that they don't even feel like effort anymore. They just become the way life is. And once you see that, you start looking at weight loss completely differently. Habit 1. There's an old phrase from Okinawan culture, Hara Hachi Bu. It roughly translates to, eat until you're about 80% full. Now think about what that actually means. It doesn't mean eating less of something you love and feeling deprived. It means stopping a little earlier than you normally would, before you're stuffed, before the slight discomfort sets in that most of us have just accepted as normal after a meal. Here's the thing that makes this fascinating. Satiety signals, the signals that tell your brain you've had enough, they take time to travel. So by the time your brain gets the message that you're full, your stomach was already full 5 or 10 minutes ago. And in those 5 or 10 minutes, most of us just keep eating because the food is still there. Okinawa is famously one of the places in the world where people regularly live past 100. And this one small habit, this pause before fullness, is part of that story. No strict rules, no extreme diet, just a simple pause in the middle of your meal to ask yourself one question: am I still hungry? Would I feel okay if I stopped right now? Weight management so often starts with awareness. No restriction. Habit 2. Now this connects directly to something else. Because even perfect awareness of hunger gets harder when you're eating at the speed of someone who hasn't eaten in 3 days. Think about a traditional Japanese meal for a second. It arrives in several small dishes, different textures, different colors, a little soup, some rice, a few bites of fish, pickled vegetables on the side. Nothing is one giant portion of one thing. The structure of the meal itself naturally slows you down. Research consistently shows that slower eating is linked to higher feelings of satiety and lower overall calorie intake. Not because you're depriving yourself, but because you're giving your body time to catch up. And here's something interesting. Most of us eat fast because we're distracted. The phone is there, something's playing in the background. The meal becomes background noise to something else. The food disappears almost without being noticed. Put the utensils down between bites. Chew more than you think you need to. Remove screens from the table. It sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but the body often knows exactly when it's had enough. The problem is that modern life never gives it time to speak. But food is only part of what's happening, because there's one factor driving belly fat accumulation that most people genuinely don't think about, and it has nothing to do with what you eat. Habit 3. Stand in a crowded Tokyo train station and watch people for a while. Hundreds of people are moving in every direction, and yet something is different from what you'd expect. There's a kind of composure there, a rhythm to it. Here's what chronic stress actually does to the body. It triggers the release of cortisol. And cortisol, when it stays elevated over long periods, has a pretty specific effect. It pushes the body to store fat around the abdomen. Not as a punishment, as survival. The body is essentially saying, we're under threat, hold on to resources. And it doesn't just affect where fat is stored. Chronic stress also drives cravings, particularly for dense, calorie-rich foods. So it's not a lack of willpower. It's a hormonal response to a nervous system that never gets to rest. In Japanese culture, small moments of decompression are woven into the day. A tea ritual in the morning, a short walk in the evening, gardening, just sitting somewhere quiet. These aren't productivity breaks. They're genuine recovery moments. 10 minutes of nothing, no phone, no tasks, just coming down from whatever the day has been. Sometimes weight gain isn't caused by eating too much. Sometimes it's caused by carrying too much. Habit 4. Someone walks to a local store in their neighborhood. It takes maybe 8 minutes. They pick up a few things and walk back. That's it. That's the whole event. Nothing impressive. But they do it every day, and they walk to the train station. And they walk from the station to the office. And they walk back. And maybe they take the stairs. And maybe they stand for part of the commute. This is where modern life has quietly done something damaging. We've separated movement from daily life almost completely. Movement now requires a special outfit, a special location, and a scheduled slot in your calendar. And if you miss the scheduled slot, you don't move that day. But frequent low-intensity movement, just walking, standing, moving through your day, accumulates into something significant over time. It's not glamorous. It doesn't feel like a workout. That's almost the entire point. Walk after meals. Walk during phone calls. Walk for errands instead of driving when you can. Don't add movement to your day. Weave it back into the things you're already doing. Health grows from repetition more than from effort. And there's one more reason Japanese meals tend to support a healthier weight. And it's sitting right there on the plate, hiding in plain sight. Habit 5. A traditional home dinner in Japan. Rice in a small bowl, miso soup, a few pieces of grilled fish, some pickled vegetables, maybe a small side of something green. It's not a tiny amount of food, but the plates and bowls are modest. Nothing is oversized. Here's something behavioral science keeps confirming. We eat with our eyes before we eat with our mouths. The size of the bowl tells us what a serving looks like. If the bowl is large, a normal amount of food looks like too little. So we add more. Not because we're hungry, because the visual cue tells us it's not enough yet. Traditional Japanese food culture evolved around variety and balance rather than abundance. Many small dishes rather than one big one. Different flavors, different textures, different colors. And this variety creates something interesting. The meal feels satisfying even when the total volume is relatively modest. Because you've tasted many things, not just a lot of one thing. Use smaller bowls. Serve food before you sit down so you're not serving directly from large containers at the table. Prioritize variety over volume. Satisfaction comes from the experience of the meal, not the size of it. Habit 6. Back to that same Kyoto street. The same elderly man, the same morning walk, the same cloth bag. There's a concept in Japanese thinking called Kaizen. It means continuous improvement through small, consistent steps. Not a dramatic transformation, not a total overhaul, just slightly better, slightly more intentional, day after day. And honestly, this might be the most important thing in everything we've talked about today. Because most people approach health like a project they're going to complete. They'll do it intensely for a few weeks, and then it'll be done. But that's not how the body works. The body responds to what you do consistently over a long time. The science on behavior change is pretty clear on this. Small, simple habits have dramatically higher long-term adherence rates than dramatic lifestyle overhauls. Because small things don't require motivation to maintain, they just become part of the rhythm of your day. So here's the simplest possible way to actually use this. Choose one habit from today, not 5, just one. Maybe it's putting your phone face down during meals. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk after dinner. Maybe it's using a smaller bowl. Pick the one that feels most doable right now and try it for 7 days. Just notice what changes. That's it. One habit, 7 days. That Kyoto street doesn't look impressive. That's the whole point. The elderly man isn't trying to be healthy. He's just living in a way where health happens almost automatically. Built into the routine, built into the rhythm. Lasting change rarely arrives as a breakthrough. It doesn't usually come from the moment you finally find the discipline to overhaul everything. It comes from ordinary moments, repeated. One slower meal, one short walk, one quiet cup of tea, one decision to stop before you're stuffed. These ordinary moments, done consistently, start to add up in ways that are hard to see day to day, but impossible to ignore over months and years. Health doesn't have to feel like discipline. It can feel like rhythm. Which one of these habits felt most familiar when you heard it? Like something you already half knew but never quite put into practice? Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious which one resonates most. And if this kind of thing interests you, there's a lot more like it here. I'll see you in the next one.